Monday, March 7th, it's Cardboard Consultants, and we are back with a lot of topics. We're going to go over just about everything from submissions to 40-man roster implications for top prospects, and also why ever in the world Kendall picked up an Elvis Andrews card. But T, how are we doing today? And then I'll get to Kendall because I'm sure he's really amped about that pickup. He's the first person to buy an Elvis Andrews card in the last 3 years. But T, how we doing?
Doing well, my man. Doing well. Excited about this show. I love the 40-man roster topic. I think it's going to be a good one. I think people are looking for this info and excited to bring it. So,
absolutely. And Kendall, you probably could get in like the Guinness Book of World Records for buying a card that nobody else has bought for the last 2 years. Elvis Andrews, great a while ago, maybe the worst big leaguer last year. So talk about that purchase.
Well, I if he was the worst major leaguer last year, then he's probably at his floor. But he was one of my favorites growing up, and I just noticed that I only have one Elvis Andrews card in my collection, and it was a relic of him being an A, and I was like, that's not good enough. So as a Rangers fan, I went out and I bought a PSA 10 Bowman first of Elvis Andrews.
I just heard the police coming to get you and arrest you for buying that card.
No, that's T.
Oh, that's T? T, where you live, man? Everything all right?
T's mic picks up everything.
I'm sorry. My house kind of backs up to a main road, so every once in a while I get some siren noise. Kendall, how much did that Elvis Andrews set you back?
$0.
Wait, what?
My grandma bought it for me.
Oh,
if you must know.
I feel like an asshole.
Yeah. It's like the time I asked you about your hat.
Yeah. Yep. And I was like, it was my dad's. That in that case, well, I'm a big proponent of collecting like the guys from your childhood. I just have to give you a hard time. I have a bunch of Juan Pierre, even Dontrell Willis stuff that obviously is not worth much. That's the cool thing though, is when you collect your favorite players from your childhood that weren't superstars, you can get their sickest card for cheap. And the sentimental value is
Elvis Andrews card out there, you know.
That's what sucks. Like I got this guy Griffey behind me and like his jersey. Everybody loves Griffey. That was expensive as hell. That was a Christmas gift, but I can go get a Dontrell Willis probably 1-1 for like $100 or something. I don't know. I got to go find something out there, but we're going to talk about a lot more in the hobby. I'm interested to get your guys' thoughts just in general on, you know, why you wanted to get into a little bit more on the grading, kind of what stood out to you guys on that end of things, because there's a lot of interesting layers, I think, to just now people tracking the information that they are giving us. So I'll start with you, T. How is this information kind of being given out to collectors? Is that something that's kind of been more new in terms of PSA saying how many cards they've had graded, whether that's up or down, or is that people doing it on the back end and just kind of figuring it out through like other information services?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're not keyed into finding out statistics about grading, a great follow for this, and Kendall will agree, is Gem Rate. I think they're on Instagram and Twitter. At Gem Rate is their handle, and they give almost daily statistics of the number of submissions, not number of submissions, but number of cards graded by the 3 major grading services. And then each month they give a recap of kind of their performance, what sports are excelling, or not excelling, but what sports are at the top. And so it's a really kind of a comprehensive report of what's going on in the grading industry. Solid follow. Shout out to them, and go follow them if you're not.
So it's a little bit small here, but I think for most people that are on their computer, they can probably see this pretty easily. We got to figure out a way to like make it zoom in a bit more. But if we put our faces away, it'll get a little bit bigger. These are some interesting numbers here. And I'd love for Kendall to kind of go into this a little bit too. What sticks out to you about just the items graded and the discrepancy here? And what stands out to me, what I will say though, is that Beckett is actually third in this little February tally.
Yeah, I think I've really dove into this over the past couple of days, especially since our last conversation about the grading industry and what could be done potentially in light of PSA buying the flat in New Jersey. And I thought I thought when I would look at this, I would see Beckett as second because we've always there's kind of been this mantra in the hobby that Beckett is second after PSA.
Yes.
And then there was some other images on, and I always use GemRate as well. They put out some really good content in terms of farming those statistics out. But they cover a lot of of graders, like CSG is also something that they cover. But in this particular graphic, CSG was second. And I have seen a swing in the hobby where CSG is more popular. And one interesting fact that I wanted to point out here.
Or do you mean SGC?
Yeah, what did I say?
CSG.
Yeah.
It's so funny, dude. But sorry to cut you off. When we were at the Atlanta show, I was literally when I was going and introducing myself to a bunch of the different grading companies, I was like, I honestly, if I mess up your acronym, I'm really sorry. Like,
well, there it is. I just messed it up.
It's just so many PSA, SGC. But anyway, continue.
Yeah. So SGC is, I mean, specifically in this graphic, you're seeing. I mean, this is one marginal sect of data, but I have seen a swing in the hobby where SGC is putting more of those tuxedos out there, and you're seeing them as more commonplace in the hobby. And actually, T put me onto that a couple of months ago. But an interesting portion of data, and yeah, PSA is king. You know, they had a 7% hike in daily submissions last month over their previous month. So there's continuing to be more and more people going the PSA route. But I thought something that was really interesting was, so SGC, I'll ask you this, Aram. If I'm going to ask you, what is the most submitted section of cards to PSA, what would you think?
Oof. That's a great question. Honestly,
in the month of February, I guess.
For like what sport?
Yeah. Well, just anything that would be submitted as grading. What do you think the top submission was?
Category, it's obviously not Pokemon.
It is trading cards for PSA, so it is the trading card games. So Pokemon, any sort of trading mon, any sort of trading card is what PSA is grading the most right now. What's interesting though is SGC's number one is baseball.
Huh.
And I was like, that's interesting, especially when it applies to us. And so as I'm seeing a swing into the SGC market, that data is actually backing that up, where SGC is fielding quite a bit of baseball. And I wonder if that's because a lot of that top series 1 is going into the grading products. Yeah. And it's like kind of a cheaper product. And maybe, we've run out of Bowman Draft going into grading. Maybe those were going to PSA. I don't know. It's just an interesting sect of data that I was seeing. And kind of just wanted to talk it out with you guys.
Well, I think we kind of real quick, T, before I kick it to you, we kind of hashed this out in the last episode, right? Where if I'm pulling a card that is $30 raw, maybe $150 or $200, whatever the multiplier is, if it's graded to a 10, I'm not going to pay for PSA to take care of that. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, it's only $50 now.
Yeah, even then though, like I'd almost rather go $30 route. But what does SGC cost?
Well, so this is the kind of the crux of the issue is it's about cost and turnaround time. So, we love Beckett. We're fans of them, awesome. Big time. But right now their lowest tier, their lowest tier is $30, but that's with no subgrades. The next kind of standard tier is $50 a card, and their approximated wait times are like 6 to 9 months, and that's probably more aligned probably 12 months anyways. Well, while SGC is $30 and their turnaround times are like 20 to 25 days.
Exactly.
I mean, this is how market shares won. Like SGC is capitalizing on the fact that they're, more people are grading cards. They have quicker turnaround times for less costs. Like this is the second month in a row that they've outperformed Beckett with regards to how many cards they've graded. Beckett needs to rip through that backlog or they're going to find themselves slipping further and further behind. So I don't know. SGC is a great play for me. I think they look good. I mean, who doesn't want their card in a tuxedo anyway? They look nice and fancy and ready to roll.
Your card in a black tie event right there. Yeah. It's ready to go. Well, and the funny thing is I was it all kind of connects, right? You can kind of see, you put the dots together, you draw the lines, it makes sense. So when I was at the show in Atlanta at Culture Collision, I could not find hobby boxes of the new tops. And I finally found one on the third day. But I kept asking all the different vendors, and they all said, no, they're flying off the shelves. We only have blasters. Our hobby boxes keep going. Everybody's hunting Wander. And when I think about it from that perspective, I'm thinking, okay, a lot more people are buying tops right now. Usually even the people that are hunting high end, that want to really gamble, that usually go Bowman, they're buying 4 hobby boxes of tops here because they want to hunt that Wander. If they pull those bases, though, we talked about how it's kind of gotten watered down price wise, but if you go send that to SGC and it's a 10, it's a great card to hold on to. It's Wander freaking Franco. I pulled a couple and I sent them in. I didn't go PSA. I was just went with a cheaper grading company because I was like, might as well just send it in and see what happens. I don't want to spend 50, 60, 70 bucks, whatever it is, with PSA. So I think we're seeing the trickle down of this cheapest or cheaper product that Topps has actually being more popular, people not wanting to spend the same amount that they spent on the hobby box to get the cards graded. And now we're seeing that be a little bit more of a market share for some of these other companies. I think this is great. That's why I'm okay with the cheaper Topps product that we were talking about and making a lot of it, because I think it also creates a little bit of balance throughout the whole hobby, Kendall.
Yeah, I'm interested to see when Bowman 22 comes out, whether that be in April or they delay it to the start of the season, if SGC holds on to these rates. Because if that's the case, then we can't just say it's a discount breaker or a discount grader anymore. And Beckett, I think, just one last thing, I think Beckett is onto something else, and I think that's why they're not as I don't know anything. That's not smoke and mirrors or whatever, but I think Beckett is trying to focus somewhere else. It just seems like they have something in the works.
I mean, it's such a successful company and well run, and they've done so many things so well for so long that I wouldn't be surprised to. It always seems like these companies come out and you're like, whoa, when were they doing all that? And they're like ready to unveil something new. So it's definitely something worth monitoring. Last thing I'll say before we move on to the next topic, T, are you seeing yet? It might be too early to see this translate, or it might just be a little bit too difficult to anecdotally be able to track. But have you seen any difference now in SGC grades as it pertains to prices versus Beckett? Are we seeing that? Because if this trend continues, I think we'll see SGC value, like a SGC 10, start to separate a little bit and get closer to PSA than it is to Beckett, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I haven't looked at that. I'll look at that.
We'll store that one away for next episode. But I figured that might be an interesting topic.
Right, because you're constantly kind of comparing PSA to the other grading companies. You're not necessarily comparing the other, like SGC and BGS, exactly, and maybe even HGA or CSG. So that's a good question. Is the gap closing between, I guess, the return on your grading investment between Beckett and SGC? That's good.
And acronym.
Yeah.
It's
the SGC and CSG.
CSG's best strategy is having their acronyms so close to SGC.
So another thing that I'm really excited to talk about is, well, not excited to talk about because it's unfortunate, but it's an important and interesting topic, is the lockout implications. Because the beautiful thing on one side is that we have minor league baseball that's going to get rolling right on time, and we're going to see a litany of extremely talented players be ready to go. And that's the great part of it. The unfortunate part is that there will be quite a few prospects who will not be able to play out of the gate. And those will be any prospect basically that's on the 40-man roster. And what results in a prospect being on the 40-man roster is either after 5 years of being drafted, 4 to 5 years, depends on your situation and age. But after that amount of time of being drafted or signed, you're eligible for the Rule 5 draft if you haven't been called up to the big leagues yet. And to protect you from the Rule 5 draft, a team will add the player to the 40-man roster so that nobody can take them away. The other way is if a player debuted last year, obviously to debut at the big league level, you have to be added to the 40-man roster. They're not going to remove you off of the 40-man roster, because then you have to clear waivers or you're going to use one of the options. So there are some guys that I think we are all very excited to watch play that will not be able to play prospect-wise this coming season until the lockout is solved. But the good news is there's a lot of really good players that will be able to play. So we kind of wanted to just get a little bit into that and what those implications will be. But also it should be interesting to see if the added focus on minor league baseball has any impact on prices as well, as people try to gear up for maybe some players making their opening day debut when they may not have, because the season would have started on time. Instead, these guys mash for 3-4 weeks in the minor leagues at the AAA level, and someone like Tristan Casas could end up debuting.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's interesting to me is the amount of releases that are kind of scheduled between now and say like May 1st. I think between Topps and Bowman, there's 10 products that were set to be released. So like if the season gets pushed back a month, I don't even know. I would love to kind of hear your thoughts on when you think we might actually get started. But if it gets pushed back a month, that's 10 releases of products that we're going to kind of not have a season going on, or the expectation of a season going on. So kind of could it possibly slow down this Wander mania is one of the questions that I had. I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Kendall.
I think that the companies it's nothing new to delay card releases. Like that has just been going on forever, it seems like. And so I think if the season does get delayed, I think some of the ones that were really close to being in procurement, so like maybe the flagship products would still maybe come out. But I would think, like the smaller sections of the Topps and Bowman series, and even Panini series, or whatever you're counting in that 10.
I think just licensed product. I don't think we deal with Panini stuff anymore.
Yeah, we don't either. Yeah, we don't talk about that at Cardboard Consultants. But I think some of those other products would get delayed, just from the buzz not being there. But I mean, it's so interesting to look at. There's some of these guys that are on a 40-man roster that really needed to come into that invitation to spring training. And they probably weren't going to get invited to the big league club, but that invitation to spring training was going to be huge for them. Their first time on TV. I mean, look at Volpe and Peraza, or Volpe and Peraza. Like one of them is, one of them isn't. Yep. And I feel like they're very close in terms of what are the Yankees going to do? I think there's all sorts of situations all over the minor leagues where that is going to be very apparent. And I think after 2 years post this, we'll look back at this and say one guy played and one guy didn't.
Aram, how do you have Peraza ranked in the Yankee system?
He's up there, man. I have him ahead of Dominguez. But
wow.
Yeah. And again, this is one of those things where it's a little different on the prospect analysis side, maybe to cards. I'd probably still rather scoop up Dominguez than Peraza, because for me, Peraza, I don't see him being some like super exciting guy to collect. He's just a really good defensive shortstop with bat to ball skills who can do a little bit of everything, but he's not going to really be this game changing all-star. But the reason why I have Peraza ahead is just he showed the ability to hit in the upper levels. He's a great defender at shortstop, and that's going to translate to a good chance of being a big leaguer. And like I always say, we're always talking about risk on the prospect, like just the prospect analysis side, separating from cards. And that's one of the things I always like to try to explain, is we're talking about risk and WAR is really what I'm ranking it on, right? And those things don't always have to be incorporated into cards. I think there usually is a little bit of that crossover, but it's almost like a Venn diagram, and there's some things that stay on outside of the middle. With Peraza, I just don't think the upside is there enough to really put a ton of money into him. If he's super cheap and you can get a starting shortstop for the Yankees, of course. I honestly haven't seen his prices. But, does he even have a card yet?
Yeah, he does.
He does? Because that's another topic that I'm really excited to talk about, is there's so many dudes that don't have cards that sometimes I'm like George Valera. He's
being bought pretty like a lot.
Yeah, see that's why I'd rather not. But especially because Volpe is going to be the guy that really ends up taking over, right? Like he's the guy that's going to be the game changer. Peraza can maybe move to second. We'll see what happens there. But he's a legit prospect. He's a top 100 prospect, and he's well inside the top 100 because of his tools across the board. But maybe not as exciting as some of these other guys. But you talk about the implications of the 40-man and some of these prospects not playing. Kendall brought up a lot of good points that I was going to get to. One other thing that is very important, man, is some of these guys that aren't close to big league ready, but because of the layoff in 2020, they're a little bit behind schedule. A lot of these guys are signed at 16, 17 years old. So they could be 5 years into their pro career, but still only 21, 22. And, working on that development track. George Valera, for example, it would be a big, big year for him. He made the jump to AA after dominating high A, struggled a little bit, started to finish strong. And this would be a chance for him to keep that momentum going. Now it's stifled. And not only is it stifled, they have no ability to contact the big league teams. So you have a lot of these players in the Caribbean or South America or wherever, just the teams don't know what they're doing, and they're just hoping that they're doing the right thing and training properly, but they're really not allowed to have contact with them. And a lot of teams haven't really talked to their players whatsoever. So it is a really sticky situation in that regard. And you got to kind of tread a little bit lightly with some of those 40-man guys. But overall, I think it's a case-by-case basis. I'm curious. I know you pulled up some names, T. Who are you most concerned about on that 40-man side?
One of the ones that I think is most interesting just because of kind of the steam that he's picked up in the hobby in general is O'Neal Cruz. I mean, we got to see him for 2 games. And he, in those last 2 games of the season, I think he went 3 for 9. He hit a home run.
He hit a home run like 119, I think, too.
And golfed it, too.
Yeah,
like it was like the worst pitch I've seen.
Drove in, just a extremely, extremely, extremely small sample size. But still, you got to see a little bit of him at the big league level. Now he's on the 40-man. And kind of, I'd love to hear from you, Aram, in terms of like, where was he expected to land, post spring training? And how does this maybe affect his card value moving forward?
And man, I think he was on the opening day roster.
Really?
I agree.
Yeah. So, I think it's on one side, I would be less worried about O'Neal Cruz than some of these other guys because O'Neal Cruz already showed it at double and triple, right? So like O'Neal Cruz has nothing left to prove at the minor league level. And so he's kind of, at this point, I look at him like a big leaguer ready to go. And he's kind of on the same holding pattern as everybody else. Of course, I'd like to see him get going right away and get through some of those rookie ABs. And, sometimes it gets a little bit rough out of the gate for these guys. But, Cruz already proved everything.
Sure.
You look at like a Ronnie Mauricio. Yeah. That guy needs reps. Like he needs minor league reps, and he can't get those. Like, those are the guys that I'm way more worried about if I were collecting Mauricio. That's just an example because he's another 40-man guy. I know we don't really touch on pitchers, but like imagine a Mackenzie Gore. I mean, that's a guy that really could
man, he
innings,
really needed the innings.
And now he can't contact the team. That might actually be a good thing. I'll say that. It might be a good thing that he can just not be interacting with the Padres right now. I mean, they fired their the head of farm development, and I don't know what the deal is over there. But like, there's just so many examples like that.
Another guy that I know you like is Brian Rocchio. He's on the Indian or Guardians 40-man. So I mean, there's a lot. Jose Tena again for the Guardians.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And this was funny. We just wrote up the Guardians system. And we're about to get like pretty philosophical here on cards real quick. And it's something we can dive into more on another episode. There's something I noticed as I went through this Guardian system, which by the way, check out the write-ups there. And we also went through it on the call-up. The deepest farm system in baseball. I'm not saying the best. It's probably top 5. It is the deepest farm system, and it's not close. And what I noticed their approach is they'll have a bunch of pitchers, obviously, and a bunch of middle infielders who have great bat to ball skills and who have great makeup and work ethic. Every single guy in that system that are middle infielders, people that I've talked to, they give me the same report. And when I watch, I see it too. It's just great instincts, just knows how to play the game, high baseball IQ, and good work ethic. So those Guardians prospects, I trust more when there's no ability to really work with the teams, go to camp, whatever. Like Rocchio is just lauded for his approach to the game, his baseball IQ and work ethic. But that's another guy too, though, that aggressive approach, would love to see him get more ABs and get more acclimated. And he stepped his game up at AA. Like, that's a guy I want to see. So yeah, that was incredibly frustrating on his end of things too. I mean, just another name that I was so excited to be able to watch this year. How about MJ Melendez? He hit 41 jacks last year, could have cracked the opening day roster. We'll have to wait. Nick Prado, same story.
Gabriel Moreno.
Gabriel Moreno is one that really sucks because he was hurt all last year. He only played 30 games, was fantastic, or 40-something games, was fantastic. Went to the Arizona Fall League after he healed up his thumb, was fantastic. And now there's a delay. So I don't know if we're going to see the card prices dip for those guys at all, but there could be a situation where just less people, I would say more people are hunting the guys that are playing. Because, right, we see the minor leagues. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, Kendall, because I know you have your own minor league theory. If we're watching, let's say, Gunnar Henderson, just tear it up through the first 2 weeks, people are going to start flocking that way. Luis Matos is going off. People are flocking that way. I'm not saying people are going to be like, oh, I'm not buying those 40-man roster guys, but naturally you're going to gravitate to the guys that are putting up numbers at the present time. Do you think we could see that result in some prices dipping just naturally by demand with some of these 40-man guys? Like, could there be a little bit of a buy window? I'm not saying a huge dip, but even 5-10% maybe?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and my example was I took Francisco Alvarez and then I took Julio Rodriguez. And obviously Julio is wildly popular and wildly expensive, to be fair, and his Bowman first autos are incredible, but he's not going to be necessarily in the limelight. And do we think he's necessarily going to need those reps? No, we believe Julio, for the most part, I think the three of us are all like, he's going to be good, even if he doesn't get this half month.
I think he could not hit for 5 years and come back and just mash.
But I think we're going to see an opportunity to where there's probably some people that are invested in Julio that don't really understand the general market. And then they're going to see like all these other players playing and they're going to say, oh, I got to get in on these guys. Well, here's my big fish. I need to go recoup some funds. I need to get out of this card. And I think there are bad investors in any hobby, and so I think there's probably some people that bought Julio really high that are still probably looking to get out. And so for like this card right here, I think this card is going to pop in this like little series of whenever the major league gets back to starting, because Francisco Alvarez is wildly popular. He's wildly good. He's a catcher, so his prices are not going to be as high as others, but you're definitely going to be able to see him play. And I think the MLB, when they do show or what they do show of the minor leagues, they're going to be really gravitating towards these guys that they believe are going to be like, the blue chip stocks per se of these minor leaguers. And they have him at number 3. So I'm just saying, I see this as an opportunity to maybe sell Alvarez and potentially buy Julio. Now those are slim margins. But anyway, you're making me sick with this.
I know.
Roulette.
Put us on a roller coaster real quick. Yeah, that's one angle of it, and the other angle I just think is people are going to naturally flock to the names that are popping up. Right, no one's going to be tweeting clips of O'Neal Cruz hitting home runs because O'Neal Cruz won't be hitting home runs. Maybe you'll get a clip of him doing it, somewhere on a backfield or whatever.
There have been some Soto clips. I don't know if you've seen those.
Yeah,
so people will see those big guys.
Yeah, but I think it's the week to week where this guy's lighting it up in Double-A. People are naturally going to gravitate towards that, and it's almost like these players are injured. It's almost like these guys are just on the shelf. And I think there's just going to be a natural progression of people gravitating and putting their money, investing their money in the guys that are currently playing. And I'm very interested to see how that reflects in the market, T.
It's absolutely going to happen because of what you said. There's going to be like someone's going to hit something that with an exit velo of like 120 or something, and then people are going to go crazy, and it's going to happen. I mean, there's so much hype around prospects already. As soon as those clips start flying around social media, like people are going to buy into it. It's going to be interesting to watch.
I totally agree, and I'm very fascinated to see who that guy is that's going to put up the crazy exit velo and start the hype train, because it was Marco Luciano who did it. With that 118.6 or whatever off of Ryan Rollison was kind of the beginning of the snowball effect of what's become this mega prospect type for him. And another name that will be interesting to follow. And thank goodness he does not need to be added onto that 40-man roster here. But I made a couple pickups, by the way. I want to see what you guys think.
You went to the biggest card show in recent month or
so I made a couple pickups. I got the Alec Thomas
nice
base card.
Very nice.
PSA 10. Very excited about that one. But we're talking 40-man, guys.
40-manner.
I'm screwed right here. Josh Lowe.
Josh Lowe. He's a great one.
Josh Lowe. 9.5s across the board here. So do I crack this thing open and send it to PSA?
Well, don't crack it. Just send it in for crossover.
They do that now, right? They cross over. Yeah. So 40-man guy, because he had 3 at-bats. And so I just got to wait. And I'm a big fan of his too. And he's a guy that, was right on the cusp. I think even more so with him, I think the Rays are going to dump Kevin Kiermaier, and they can't even do that until the lockout's solved. So it's an interesting holding pattern right now. As we wrap up, T, any other cards you picked up recently or anything that you're focusing on? And then I'll let Kendall talk about something beyond Elvis Andrews, though I do think it's a fantastic pickup now that I know where it came from.
I bought random stuff. I bought a little bit of Bichette. I keep buying Tucker. I bought Volpe, Correa. Again, I think we talked about that last week. I bought a Matthew Stafford rookie card.
Oh, geez.
So I bought some random stuff this week, but I just I kind of scoured and found some good deals and love adding some of this stuff to my collection. But, I'm kind of trying to pick up as much base first, Sapphire first of Volpe that I can. Little by little, they're not crazy expensive. Buying them raw, they're like $35, $40. Just kind of going to keep building up that stash. I think they will escalate in value over the next year. He'll be a prime candidate for what we just talked about. There's going to be clips of him flying around.
He's going to be probably one of the best prospects, that'll be able to play.
Yep.
What about you, Kendall? Any scoops other than Elvis?
Yeah, I did. I ended up scooping a Pena, and I'm pretty excited about it. Found one for fairly good price. It wasn't as good as the comps that you were talking about last week. T, like you said, it was like $80, and I went on. There was not one in Earth shot of $80.
Really,
unfortunately. But I got it for like 102.
Okay.
Still felt like that was a good price, especially because when he does end up getting on Houston, it'll be nuts. But I ended up making that purchase. You guys talked me into it, even though I hate the Astros. But I've also been buying some Josh Young firsts again with his labrum surgery. A lot of people that I knew are getting rid of his cards. They're afraid of him. I do think that there could potentially be some issues with him potentially, but people are so good at rehab and surgeries now.
Yeah, no.
But as a labrum survivor, Aram, do you think Josh Young is okay?
I think he's fine. And I think it is a good opportunity to scoop him up. He's just such a good hitter. If his ability to hit was purely predicated on just crazy power and violence, like we see Tatis, where I was a little bit more worried about his injury just continuing to bother him. But the difference is Young's getting the surgery, so we're not going to see it, keep coming up. He's going to take care of it, and he'll be good. It might be a slow start. You get a little stiff. You got to work out the scar tissue. You get some hitches in your swing a little bit just from the mobility. And that's the other thing. When he comes back, he might be a little bit rusty. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, I think 5 years from now, we'll forget that he ever had this procedure. And he's still going to be a really, really good player. I know T's got to jump in 2 minutes, so I have one last quick question. You're talking about bases and refractors and whatever. I was going through some of the cards. I know you're going to freak out. I don't have it in a sleeve, but Jordan Walker.
What are you doing? Get that thing in a sleeve.
I know. These cards are so expensive now, just the refractors without an auto, because he's such a big name now. Should I just sell that? Should I just sell all of those base refractors and put that money towards a Pena auto? Should I just cash those in? It can't go up much more, right? I already know Kendall's answer. So T, real quick before we end the episode.
I don't know if it can't go up much more. I don't know if we really know exactly what Walker's going to be.
Well, he has to be a god among men if it is going to be much more expensive, right?
Yeah, that's true. I'm kind of torn. I'll say if you have another player that you really want to target, and right now is the time to buy, then yeah, clearing out base kind of refractor stuff that's not numbered, to go after that is probably a smart play. So
there it is. There it is. All right. Thank you. Because I'm gonna be putting them up on eBay now. I have probably a lot. I might do a lot. I have a bunch of papers as well. Well, T has to go do father duties and pick up the kids. So tip of the cap to you for being a good dad and not just talking baseball cards and telling the kids to wait. You'll come when you can.
Yeah.
Kendall, you just got, I don't know. What do you got to do now, Kendall? You work, you're busy.
I actually have to take somebody to the airport. So,
what a nice guy. I got to go take my car for service. So
we all
will be doing relatively unenjoyable things, or at least less enjoyable than this. And we'll be back next week for another episode with a lot more topics. And T's going to have the information on the price discrepancies we're seeing maybe across some of these different gradings. And I will also be a little bit closer. There's a chance the top 100 list will be done by then. So we will see. But thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys next week on Cardboard Consultants.
See ya.